Okay, so welcome back. I'm happy now with the mix, and I think it's time to commit to mixing it down and giving it a rough master. So what I'm going to do is, first off, is come to the busiest section in the track. And obviously, having created this myself, I know that it's going to be this section here. So really, you know, I can tell there's the most amount of things happening visually, so it's going to be the densest part, and hence really the loudest part of the track. So I'm just going to loop this section up, and the first thing I really want to have a look at is the master output. So you can see here I'm at -4 dBs below 0, and my levels, there's a fair amount of headroom. What I don't want to be seeing at this stage is levels really high like that, and that kind of clipping, digital clipping. So as I've been going through the mix on each track, I've kept the volume levels fairly low because the mastering process is going to make everything louder, really polish the track and make it sound really professional. So let's come to this section. And the first thing I'm going to do here is load up the EQ8. So really this is like a rough mastering session. Really good enough to get your stuff onto Soundcloud, social media, and good enough to play out in bars and clubs and things like that. So I've got to get my EQ8 on, and to get it as sort of precisely analysing frequencies as best as possible, I'm going to switch it onto oversampling, like so. So here's the frequency content, low frequency energy down the bottom and highs up this end. And what I'm going to do first off is just put in a little low cuts here. And this comes in at 30 Hertz, and really this just makes sure that we don't have any unwanted really, really low sub-frequencies that, especially if the track is played really loud, might kind of get in the way of everything else and sound really muddy. As you're probably aware, when you're out at a night out or something, and some loud music is playing, the bass frequencies really carry. So this just cuts off everything below 30 Hertz. I don't want anything to be down in that frequency range anyway. And first off, I'm just going to set here a bell curve. I'm going to tighten up the Q. I'm going to raise the gain level like so, and just sweep through, see if I can spot any problem areas. I'm going to take the scale up to 200%, and it's a little bit resonant here, for example. So what I'm going to do is jump back down to 100%, and I'm just going to widen the Q here, and yeah, this is the area that's a little bit kind of ringy, and I'm going to pull this down. Okay, so I've isolated where the problem frequencies are, and we're just going to flip this around like so. I feel that we could do a little bit of boosting here as well. So I'm just going to basically add a little bit more mid-range frequency, and I'm also going to widen the Q here too. So you can see how the EQ just brightens the track up a bit. It's not so resonant in certain areas. And okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here now is I'm going to bring up a compressor. Let's use the glue compressor. It works very well on buses and mixdowns, sort of master outputs. So let's load it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the ratio here very low, so I'm going to set this to 2. And this is really a kind of gentle process. In fact, all of these elements here, the EQ, compression, and limiting, essentially are processes that are quite subtle. If you find that you're really, really pushing levels and going for kind of crazy settings on compressors and things like that, the chances are the mix itself needs some attention first. So this is really fine-tuning, polishing what's here already. So I'm going to set the release time fairly fast. Going to get, yeah, a fairly fast attack. And get the threshold, so really we're just compressing a little bit of the music. We're not going too heavy. Okay, what I'm also going to do now is I'm going to throw in some more EQ. Okay, so there's two EQ stages. There's EQing the track before compression. The compression then evens the track out, and then there's another EQ that we're going to have a look at now. So far we've been looking at the EQ just in the standard stereo mode. But what I would like to do is to flip over to what we call mid-sides mode. And here, what I can do is I can take away the mono information in the middle of the track. So that effectively I've just got the left and the right now. And similarly, I can affect the sides information. So I can take out the left and the right, so all I've got is the mono coming down the middle. So what I'd like to do here is any stereo information in the very, very low frequency end, I'd like to remove, okay? So what I need to do is I need to go onto sides. Okay, so that is left and right. And what I'm going to do is just do a little low cut here, maybe up to maybe 140, 150 hertz. Okay, and I'm going to also come and just dip the mono information around the high frequency end, and also add just a little bit of air in the stereo end. Oh, I say stereo, left and right sides. So the reason I've affected the mono and left and right sides information is that it's just going to help overall with how the track is perceived when it's played out. So we don't want lots of movement in the very, very low frequency energy moving from left to right. So by taking away the left and the right, the mono information traveling down the middle is what's going to come out in the low frequency area. I also boost here in the left and right just with the high frequency energy, and it just adds a little sheen and sparkle, adds a little bit more width to the high frequency end. So this is really just like a focusing EQ, focusing on the middle and the left and the right independently. So the next stage is the limiter, and with the limiter what we're going to do is reduce the dynamic range of the track and turn up the overall volume. So the first thing we need to do is set a ceiling here whereby we cannot go beyond a certain level. What I like to do is to set this to about minus 0.09 dBs here, or thereabouts, and we take up the gain, okay? So the sound has kind of been evened out, it's been EQ'd. We're going to take up the overall gain towards this ceiling here, reducing the dynamic range, so the difference between the quieter and louder parts. And so the entire volume is going to come up. We are effectively squashing the track. So let's bring up the volume. Now, I'm having to take that limiter pretty heavy in order to get it really responding here. So what I need to do is to boost the volume before I get into the limiter, so that I don't have to use the limiter too much. Again, all these processes should be fairly subtle at this stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in the utility, and I'm just going to give just a touch of volume here. And then we're going to add our limiter back in. I'm just going to Okay, so I'm going to come back and have a little listen to some of the other elements here. Let's take a few steps back. hear how it's really picked out the strings in particular. Okay, I'm confident I've got a good mix here. Definitely good enough to get onto SoundCloud, good enough to play out. So what I need to do is export this as a final piece. Now, one thing to note is that when we come to the end of our tracks, we need to watch out for reverb tails and any other effects that we might have, creating a bit of extra length there. So one of the quick ways to do it is to actually just pop in couple of nodes on the master volume track here and just bring that down like so, just to create a fade. So the limiter's good, the levels are good. We've checked the levels at the loudest part, which is key, and then we need to do an export. So I'm going to go to File, Export Audio Video, and here what I want to do is change the bit depth down to 16, and we need to really get this to CD standard, CD quality, which is 44.1. and 16 bits, okay? And essentially what that means is, if we were working at a higher bit depth, we need to downsize, and it's like a smoothing filter. So we won't notice any artifacts when downsizing here from 24-bit to 16-bit, as this dither provides a good smoothing effect for that. So really this is the industry standard still, 44.1, 16 bits. This is what we would have to send a mastering engineer or a label if we wanted to send them a mix down. So also what I want to turn on here is this upload to SoundCloud, okay? And come to export, and I'm just going to call this John Mix, and we'll call it MusicGurus, and we are ready to go. You want to make sure you're in your correct folder here. I'm just going to save this onto the desktop for now, like so, and then we're going to save, and Ableton's going to render this mix down into one stereo audio track, and then it's going to upload it to SoundCloud. So this is where I would log in now. So if you wanted to see how I created this track, check out some of my courses at MusicGurus.com. You can also contact me there if you want any feedback on your music, if you have any questions about the courses, and best of luck.